I'm going to say something that you probably are going to scratch your head at. The number one player on the PGA Tour in scoring is not in the field this week. The number two player in tour scoring is in the field this week, and it's none other than
Will Sam Burns win for the third time at the Valspar? Or will betting favorite Xander Schauffele pull it off? We've also got defending champ Taylor Moore. We are here to break down the Valspar and get you ready to turn a profit on this week's tournament. Welcome to Tea Time. I am Andy from WagerTalk.com, being joined, as always, by Nick Borman from WagerTalk.com as well. Nick, I know Scotty Scheffler won the Players, but I got to tell you, I think the big winner last week was just the PGA Tour. Talk about they desperately needed an event like that after just the clunky start to the season. So it's a bad sign for the PGA Tour when Scotty Scheffler wins, when his neck is all messed up. So an incredible performance here. What was your takeaway from the Players?
Well, you started off by mentioning Xander, so that one hurt. We had Xander. We almost cashed an outright ticket. It was sad, but 5% Scotty top 10 was a nice and easy way to cash it. But my takeaway is kind of like what you said. I mean, you don't get a finish like that with a shotgun start. You know, everybody's meant to finish on 16, 17, 18. And to watch the final group with Xander and Wyndham Clark trailing by a shot, and Wyndham, I guess, two at that point, having to take dead aim at 17 with that pin. I mean, it just proves that the product the PGA Tour has is always going to be class. And it was, like you said, much needed for them. So great finish. Hopefully we'll see those kind of tournaments as we move forward. All the big names up near the top. I mean, it's everything you would have wanted. I thought it was great. Really couldn't ask for anything different as far as how that tournament played out. And again, hopefully we can kind of start to see that and those big names rising near the top of leaderboards as we now get into, really, this is the meat of the season coming up.
Yeah, and you might expect a huge drop off in the talent pool coming off of the Players, but really not. You got Xander Schauffele,
Yeah.
Brian Harmon, Sam Burns is here, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth. So we got a really, really good field. And we got a few good tournaments leading up until the Masters. We're going to give you guys a promo code to get both plays from myself and Nick up until the Masters and through the Masters. But let's get into the Valspar real quick. And if you guys could hit the like button and give us a comment, tell us who you like this week. We had some really, really good discussion about Sam Burns in the comment section last week. So leave us a comment. Love to know what you guys are betting on and love to get that dialogue going, because the more ideas we share, more bets we share, the better off we become, and we can become better bettors together. Let's talk about Copperhead. This is a pretty tough course here. When you go back and you look at the previous winners, you see a lot of different scores here. There's single digits, there's double digits. So it's all kind of dependent on the weather and some of the setups. So the weather looks like Thursday is going to be beautiful, and then Friday we got lightning in the forecast, which could throw a lot of chaos in there, and then wind on Saturday and Sunday. So this could be a fairly low scoring event where Thursday is really important to get out and get a good score. This is a pretty unique course, 7,350 yards, par 71. This is going to look different than a lot of the courses that we've seen in Florida. There's a lot more trees, a lot less water, and it has the Snake Pit, which is 16, 17, and 18, three classic holes to end the round. And as Nick was saying, yeah, this is why the shotgun, this is the biggest hole in the shotgun start argument is, just imagine not ending the tournament with these three holes. So let's take a look at the three holes that these guys are going to end with. And we will start with hole 16, 458-yard par 4, brutal tee shot. Absolutely brutal tee shot. You've got trees to the left, water to the right, a very narrow landing area. You're going to see some big scores on this hole, and it is just drive the ball and keep your fingers crossed that it lands in the fairway. If it does land in the fairway, you're in really, really good shape. You can see there's some bunkers around the green, but pretty accessible pin locations if you hit the fairway. But if you don't hit the fairway, big numbers come into play there. So hole 17, pretty long par 3, 206 yards. it's such a big green that if you don't hit the right area, it's a pretty easy three putt. And if you get in the bunker, depending on where you're at, you could be short sighted, or you could leave yourself plenty of green to work with. But it's a really, really big green. Pin location is key. And at 200 plus yards, any little fade or any little draw that gets away from you can bring bogey into play. And then we have hole 18. It measures at 443, but it plays much longer. It is uphill. You're not going to get a ton of roll. It's been wet down there for most of the winter, and this uphill, you drive the ball, and it's just going to hit the grass and kind of stop. There's bunkers in the fairway that come into play. So it's a really, really fun hole to finish the round and to finish the tournament with, especially. So, Nick, any takeaways from Copperhead and the course they're going to be playing at the Valspar this week?
Yeah, just one little note on the snake pit that I'll add is last year they averaged 0.59 strokes over par, that 3-hole combo. So clearly, if you can get through there at even par, you're making up ground on the field. Taylor Moore, who won, played bogey free in the 12 total holes with 11 pars and one birdie. So again, that's the goal: get through there unscathed. But the rest of the golf course, the biggest takeaway I have from it, overall, it can be played very tough. It'll be interesting to see, like we've seen in the whole Florida swing. Because of the wetter winter, the rough has been thick at all the clubs that they've played so far. So I imagine that's going to continue this week at Copperhead. And what makes it even a little bit more difficult is there's these choke points, if you want to call them that, in some of these fairways where it kind of forces your hand off the tee, where you can't just necessarily blast your driver. You might have to lay back with a 3-wood. I mean, you can, but the fairway gets so narrow, and again, because the rough is 3.5 inches long to start the week, and then if it's thick, your decision to try to get into a narrow area is probably not worth it. So last year we saw roughly 50% of approach shots from 175 yards or longer. So almost half split between 175 and 200, and then 200 to 225. Part of that's because there's 4 par 5s, right? Obviously, but some of the par 4s, it's just not worth the risk to go a little longer off the tee. So I think this course kind of negates driving distance more than a lot of them on the tour do. And it's going to put a huge emphasis on your mid to long iron play. So that's kind of this area, not only just approach, but that's the area where I'm looking at as the mid to long iron approach this week. And it makes sense as to why we've seen the tournament winning scores a little higher over the years, is because it's not a wedge fest, right? These guys aren't hitting wedges and 9 irons and 8 irons and 8 screens. They're hitting 6 irons and 5 irons and 4 irons. And 7 out of the last 10 years, the winning score has been -10 or higher, I guess we should say. -7, -8, -9, and -10 seem to be a very popular winning score. So it just tells you that how this course can play. And again, you mentioned the weather. You hinted at that, Andy. If you can afford to wait, until later in Wednesday to get a better idea of the forecast, there is certainly some weather on Friday coming. It's supposed to possibly rain Thursday night into Friday, then stop a little bit, and then thunderstorms coming up sometime on Friday. It might be the afternoon. It might be mid-morning. I don't really know yet. But it's potential to have a decent tee time wave impact here. So if you can, it might be worth waiting. If you can't, then it is what it is. But just throwing that out there as well. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun tournament with some good names, and really it is a good golf course.
Yeah, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, and I will tell you, I'm not putting any plays in until Wednesday. I have
Yep.
been burned on this too many times. It's not worth it. This is just my betting tip of the week. When there's bad weather in the forecast, it is absolutely worth it to just wait up until as close as you can to tee times, because this weather changes. I've put plays in on Tuesday and watched the weather change overnight to where I had thought I had
Yeah.
good tee times, and then I ended up with bad tee times. Um, the lightning, and there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than when you put a bet in, then you realize you got the worst of the tee times, and then you watch you watch your guy go out and play, and huge gusts of wind and rain, and then the guy you bet against goes out and the weather moves through it. Perfect, beautiful, tranquil conditions. No, it's really important. I know. Oh, get the best of the number and put your bet in as early as possible. But I cannot stress enough. I really believe in waiting until Wednesday to see the tee times and see what weather is coming. So, like I said, I've learned this over the years that it's just way better to wait until you know what's going on with the weather and then make the appropriate decisions. So let's take a
Yeah.
look at the total strokes gained chart here, Nick. These are total strokes gained. We've got 12 months, 6 months, 3 months, some very popular names on here. So walk us through here. I like your notables. I think I'm paying more attention to notables than I am the top 10 ones. So what do you notice here?
Yeah, agreed. And I'll get to that in a second. But first thing first is it took a while this season, Andy, but now we're back-to-back winners coming from this graphic. Of course, it was easy when the number one player, Scotty, has won now back-to-back weeks. But again, 52 of now 97 tour events since the start of 2022. The winner has been ranked inside the top 10 in total strokes gained over the prior 12 months. So this is an important place to start when you're looking at outright betting. It of course doesn't always mirror, but it's very similar to what you're going to see on the odds board. And the big names, the four guys that are under 20-1 this week, are all right up there, the top three, and then Justin Thomas a little further down, who's been, as you can see, the graphic clearly indicates, struggled a lot last year, but has really turned it on over the last 6 months since the Wyndham Championship before the playoffs. So those are no surprise. Guys, I'm kind of really avoiding, to be honest, though, on the outright market, just because I think the price is not really worth it this week. There's a lot of good value, and you'll see this in some of the names here on the board between the 20, 25 to 50-1 range. A lot of good guys, a lot of guys that certainly could win. Eric Cole's a name that, we were betting a lot, kind of has fallen off a little bit, but he's a great approach player, great mid-iron player. And I'm kind of, really curious to see how he does this week, and very eager to pull the trigger on him, even though he's been a little bit more up and down than he was earlier in the season, but he has it in there. And I mean, last year's winner is a good, indicator of, like, you don't have to necessarily have perfect form coming into an event like this. Things just got to click. You got to have the potential. You got to have that iron play. Taylor Moore is a great approach player, but if you look at his results going into last year, he was up and down as well. So, and then he just put it together that week. So again, that's kind of why I like Cole. Finau is actually a phenomenal long iron player. Guy can't putt worth a lick, but this place, if you're hitting your irons and you're getting on a lot of those greens, 2 to 3 times more per round than everybody else, or the most of the field anyway, that might be enough to get him. Maybe he doesn't win, but he's probably up there in the top 10, top 20. I know he's obviously priced that way too, but again, I love his long iron approach. And then Cam Young rounds out the top 10 there. Just until I ever see something actually winning, I can just never get behind his price. I know it's always low at 25-1. Until he actually does it, I'm not going to do it. But you mentioned the notables, Andy. Doug Gim might be the hottest player coming into this. Bez, I mean, he's been riding. I mean, he's technically he got paid as the winner a few weeks ago, right? He would finish second to the amateur, so he got paid like a winner, even though he didn't win. So he doesn't care about that. But he's been playing very, very well. And Nick Taylor, of course, he's got 2 wins in the last calendar year and has good history here at this event as well. So you mentioned you like the notables. I like him as well. That's why I put them on here. They're trending, as you can see, in the right direction and playing very well over the 6 months and 3 months preceding this tournament.
Yeah, it's I love some of the value on some of those guys like Zunhoit and Gim. I mean, and we've seen these longer shots have a lot of success this season, and coming off of the players, this feels like a pretty good week to have some success with some of these lower priced guys.
Yeah.
Let's do players that can trip you up. We'll start with Brian Harmon. He was great last week. Yeah, he was great last week. Finished second. That was his only top 10 finish this season outside of the short field at the Century in the first week of the year. So I kind of look at that as the outlier. And Nick, he has horrible course history here. He's missed the cut 5 out of the last 6 years, which is really strange. It's really strange because you think Brian Harmon and you think, not a bomber. So he depends on his irons and his putting, and it just hasn't come to fruition here. He's priced as a top 7 player. This is a guy that just doesn't play well here. It hasn't shown consistent finishes in the top 10 this season. I worry about some of these bigger name guys in a little bit of a letdown spot. So I cannot invest in Brian Harmon with a guy that just absolutely plays terrible at this course. So Brian Harmon is my first player to trip you up. You mentioned him. I'm going Tony Finau. I don't know if many people are gonna be betting on him. He's priced as a top 6 golfer this week. Nick, that is, to me, absolutely insane. He has one finish better than 13th this season. He was 45th last week. He hasn't played here since 2018. He's played here 4 times, missed the cut in 3 of those. His strokes gained numbers are 8th in this field, but he's going to have his best finish of the season to justify this price. And you said it, man. It's his putting. His putting's minus 0.37. All of his strokes gained come from the driving and the iron. So his tee to green's good, but once he gets there, he's just terrible. I just don't trust him. I'm not going to be betting on him. I don't see how I'm betting on Tony Finau for the foreseeable future with a guy that just always seems to come up short based on where he's priced at. So Tony Finau, the price is just completely out of whack. I don't trust him at all. And then finally, I feel like everybody thinks they're so sneaky and so cute when they go, I like Minwoo Lee this week. And I don't get it. I don't understand why he's like this cult favorite. He has one finish inside the top 20 in 6 tournaments this year. 4 out of his last 5 tournaments, he's finished outside the top 40. He's 23rd in this field in total strokes gained, and his driving distance is really what has been driving his numbers. And as you mentioned, this is not a bomb the ball and short wedge it in there. This is like you got to be a little bit more strategic. This guy's minus 0.11 putting, minus 0.03 approach, and yet he's priced as a top 9 golfer this week. I don't get it. I don't get the love for him. On top of all that, he's never played here. So I get a guy whose game I don't think really fits this course. He's never played here. And the strongest part of his game is basically the part of your game that really gets negated at this course. I hope I get a good head-to-head matchup against Minwoo Lee. I think he's really overrated. I don't understand the love for him because, to be honest, he's not that good and he has not been living up to the value. So Brian Harman, Tony Finau, and Minwoo Lee are my 3 players that can trip you up. Let's go to an outright winner here. And the good news, Nick, your outright winner did not make the players that can trip you up. I was pretty good in players that could trip you up last week. So we had Sam Burns, we had Roy McIlroy. So we did pretty good on players that can trip you up. Let's take a look at an outright winner for this week's Valspar.
It's so funny how you mentioned Minwoo and feeling cute and good about your picks on him because I did bet him a couple weeks ago, like maybe twice, and that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I made such a good pick. Nobody's thinking of Minwoo, and yeah, he stinks. So I'm not on him this week. Good player to avoid. All right, my outright winner this week, we mentioned him at the beginning during the strokes gained graphic, is Doug Ghim. So, Andy, I'm going to say something that you probably are going to, scratch your head at. So the number 1 player on the PGA Tour in scoring is not in the field this week. Scottie Scheffler, obviously. The number 2 player in tour scoring is in the field this week, and it's none other than Doug Ghim. Did you know that? That's crazy, right? Doug Ghim is the number 2 adjusted score on the PGA Tour. He's number 1 in par 5 scoring. It doesn't make any sense. So I think he's going to be a popular pick for those that are paying a little bit of attention. He arrives obviously in pretty strong form. He's got 5 straight top 16 finishes, including last week at the Players. That run also includes the Farmers and includes the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So he's contending on both tough tracks and in deep field events. He's been great on approach during that run. He ranks in the top 10 in this field in strokes gained approach. And combined with a solid driver and short game, he ranks 4th in strokes gained tee to green. Oh, and he's also gained plus 0.59 strokes putting during that stretch as well. So overall, he ranks 3rd in total strokes gained over that span of the last 5 tournaments he's played in, and he ranks 4th overall this season in total strokes gained. Kind of remarkable numbers from Ghim. I know it's early, and he probably only has one direction to go from here, and that's down. But we're getting him at it when he's riding hot and in a field I think he can win at. He only has 2 starts at Copperhead. He missed the cut in 2021, but he did finish tied for 27th, respectable last year. But he is really playing some of the most best and consistent golf of his career right now. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm more excited that he has some experience on the track, not necessarily where he finished. But he seems to be trending towards his first tour win. All signs are pointing that way. We're getting a 50-1 number on Ghim this week. I think you could back that up maybe with the top 10 or top 20 to help protect your investment if you just fall short. But I think he's going to be up there come Sunday.
I love him if you're doing one and dones this week. I'm looking at him hard in my one and done. That's a really, really great pick. So let's take a look at Doug Gim on the outright winner. I'm going to get to DraftKings Darlings, but want to tell you guys about a promo that we have. We're going to do the same one from last week. We're going to give you guys my picks and Nick's picks all the way through the Masters. All you have to do is go to my profile page or Nick's profile page on WagerTalk.com. For only $99, you're going to get all picks for this week, the next two tournaments, and then culminating in the Masters. So it is an absolutely smoking deal. Nick hit his 5% play last week. I was 2-1 in my golf head-to-heads, so we're already off to a really, really good start. You get all of Nick's outrights, head-to-heads, finishing positions. You get all my plays as well. So only $99, no better time. We're in the meat of the season, and we got some very, very bettable tournaments starting with this week leading up until the Masters. So, it's worth it alone just for the Masters. So think of it as you're getting all of our picks for the Masters, and then you also get these other three tournaments thrown in there. So take advantage of that at WagerTalk.com. Go to Nick Borman's profile page or Andy Lang's profile page and get $99 for all of our golf picks through the Masters. Let us take a look at some DraftKings Darlings. Nick, one of my DraftKings Darlings, Novak, he blew up and didn't make the cut, but Zalatoris, man, just wrecking DraftKings, just wrecking lineups. Just he came in like a wrecking ball. If I say that.
Nice
quote. What an out of nowhere, man. The guy had a bunch of momentum and then he just crushed us on DraftKings. So let's take a look at some guys who I think are worth investing. Lower price guys are pretty tough. You're going to find holes in everybody's game when you get down lower price this week. So I'll start with Seamus Power at 6,600. His putting is not great. He's not very long off the tee. That doesn't worry me this week. This guy's made the cut in 6 out of 7 events this year. He doesn't have a ton of upside, but this is a weak field. Let's just get him through to the weekend, get us some weekend points at a tough course where I don't think anybody's going real low. So it's not like you're like last week, Scheffler was just, lights out. You go 20 under. If you didn't have him in your lineup, you were, pretty much dead. But this week, even if you just make the weekend and shoot par golf on the weekend, you're going to get some really good points against head-to-heads and in some of those 50-50. So Seamus Power at 6,600 is how I'll be starting my lineup. I'll take a look at Lucas Glover, 7,300. He missed the cut last week, but he made the cut in the previous 4 tournaments, and he really likes playing here. He's made the cut 5 times in a row playing here. Putting numbers are pretty bad, but what I love is his approach numbers, plus 0.93 strokes gained approach. This is a second shot course, so it makes sense that he's had success here. If his irons are working well this week, he's going to see the weekend. It's absolutely worth the price at 7,300. And then finally, Andrew Putnam at 7,700. Nick, he's got the word putt in his name, so he's got to be good. His putting is good. It's plus 0.49 strokes gained putting this year. He's made the cut in 7 out of 8 tournaments this year. Technically he has bad course history here, but he didn't play here last year. So I'm going to lean on his current form that it outperforms the course history here. So we got Seamus Power at 6,600, Lucas Glover at 7,300, and Andrew Putnam at 7,700. I have my weekly digital download article on my profile page at WagerTalk.com. It's free, gives you the rest of my lineup. So you can get that at my profile page. It's free. We do it every week. And there's also really good articles on all sports. Nick has his article up at WagerTalk.com. So a lot of free information up there as well. Nick, let's talk a finishing position. You got a really, really nice plus number on this guy. What do you like about him?
Yeah, I usually avoid kind of betting on the defending champion, mostly because their number tends to be skewed no matter what they're doing recently. It's like, oh, it's a defending champion, and people just kind of gear towards that, and it messes with the number. So Taylor Moore is a rarity for me this week to go to him, but we're getting, on the outright market, you can get the same price you got on him last year. We actually cashed him last year at 70-1 and started a great run during the summer of just cashing out a ton of outright. So hopefully we'll piggyback that this week as well. But he's 70-1 in an outright market. He's 3-1 for a top 20 finish. He may not be under the radar as far as defending champ, but he's been quietly earning paychecks. I'll say he hasn't missed the cut since the Open Championship last summer. So run a 12 straight, cuts made. However, he only has one top 20 finish during that stretch as well. So he's kind of just like, you just don't hear about him at all, right? He's making the cut, and then he's out in the morning waves on the weekends, and he's not on TV. He's not anywhere to be found. So why do I like him this week? Well, he was on kind of a volatile run preceding last year's tournament. He had 4 missed cuts in 9 events leading up to the Valspar. So I actually like his consistency going into it this year. He's had flashes of like one part of his game working and one part not so much. So it's either been great iron week so far this year, or it's been great putting. He's just not really putting them both together at the same week. And that's what he did here last year over those 4 rounds. However, Copperhead really has proven to be a course that, kind of once you figure out, you get very comfortable here. You tend to play well year after year. Obviously, we're talking about 2 back-to-back winners in just the last 5 years. Paul Casey back-to-back, Sam Burns back-to-back. Taylor Moore has a chance to go back-to-back. I don't know that he will, but I do think he can play well because he's comfortable here, and he's actually playing more consistent this year going in than he was last year. He ranks 23rd in greens and regulation this season and a respectable 41st and 28th in proximity from 175 to 200 and 200 to 225 respectively. So I mentioned those kind of yardages at the beginning of the show, but there's a ton of shots, over 50% coming from within that range, and it's going to be something I'm paying attention to. So he's got some data points that intrigue me. I think his price is pretty dang attractive for a defending champion. I don't think it's affected by the fact that he's defending champion. So I like Taylor Moore to have a decent showing this week, and 3-1 on a top 20. I think it's a pretty good number.
Love it. I've got some. I want to get just your initial reaction. So I didn't tell you I had some questions for you because we've got a pretty decent sample size on the PGA Tour. So just some takeaways now that we're getting ready for the Masters coming up. And guys, don't forget to hit the like button, leave us a comment, and also give us your opinions on what I'm about to ask Nick. I would love to get some opinions on this. Here we go. First one. Patrick Cantlay. Is it just like
I hate him
with Patrick Cantlay? He's not.
Yep.
He's just
Next.
not elite anymore. What's going on with Patrick Cantlay? This is not a small sample size. He's got 1 top 10 this year. What's going on with Patrick Cantlay?
I don't know. I feel like he kind of does this. He goes on ebbs and flows. When he's hot, he's there every week, and he's won 2 out of 3 tournaments. He's won back-to-back events. He always seems to do well in the playoffs. So I don't know if it's just like a summer thing. Like he likes the heat. He likes certain events whenever they fall on the calendar. It just is what it is. But when he's in these little bit of a funks, I avoid him, and I think he should avoid him. He's never priced like he's out of a funk, but he doesn't really come out of a funk overnight either. It takes him a while. So I'm not touching him. That's all I can say. And I don't, I think he'll be fine. I think it will come later in the summer. Just right now, it's no thank you.
Next question. How can you possibly figure out what to do betting on or against Jordan Spieth? Will you ever have a bet this year involving Jordan Spieth? Like, this guy can literally look like the best player on the planet from one hole and then a complete hack amateur the next hole. This isn't even tournament to tournament. It's hole to hole with him. Is he like the most unbettable big name on the tour? I can't possibly see betting on or against him.
I mean, you're defining Jordan Spieth to a T. That's exactly what he is. He's flashes of brilliance and flashes of what the hell is that, right? He can piss tournaments away really quickly, and then he can all of a sudden shoot 62 and be like, man, this guy's back, right? So what I did with him, I've done a couple times. I mentioned this to you, and it worked out great. Was he's a sexy kind of a guy, right? He's going to go for birdies. He's going to play aggressively, right? You don't always get these at all the books, but FanDuel is one that offers these quite a bit, and it's like first round birdies. And 2 weeks ago, he was over 3.5 birdies. I'm like, Jordan Spieth, guy makes 7 birdies around. He just also makes 7 or 8 bogeys too. So it is what it is. And of course, he had 6 birdies. I think that day was pretty easy. So if you can find markets like that, I would.